Hi, I'm Travis. This is Curious Tangents, and today we'll be discussing awkwardness. Awkwardness is a word with many definitions, but it is often defined as being turned the wrong way or standing out. This, interestingly, makes awkward. No other word in English has similar spelling to awkward, meaning that awkward stands out, which makes it an autonomic word, something that defines itself. So that's why awkwardness is awkward. But why are you awkward? It takes about 4 seconds for a regular silence to then become an awkward silence. A silence where it feels like we need to feel it with space. It is expected that conversations will flow congruently, and when they don't, we break a social expectation. The breaking of social expectations is where all awkward moments form from. There are many ways to be awkward. In fact, almost every social interaction has an awkward version. For instance, you are probably familiar with the idea of a personal space bubble. Here in America, the bubbles tend to be rather large. In other cultures, they tend to be smaller. Something that tends to be the same across cultures is that the bubble extends further in front of you than it does to the sides of you, meaning that you're more comfortable with someone standing at your side than you are a stranger standing directly in front of you. Standing side by side is often viewed as a friendly image, whereas standing directly in front of someone face to face can be viewed as sizing up for a fight or an act of intimidation, which is one reason why this is incredibly awkward. Another tendency of awkward people is to not make enough eye contact. We know from face tracking data from people who describe themselves as awkward that awkward people tend to look at the mouth rather than the eyes while other people talk to them. Now, this gives the message that you are untrustworthy because people tend not to trust people who don't look them in the eyes. Furthermore, the eyes are the most expressive parts of the face. So if you're looking at a person's mouth, you will not pick up emotional data like you would if you were looking them in the eyes. Another tendency of awkward people is to lecture rather than converse. And by this, I mean awkward people tend to go on about the subjects that they love rather than opening up the conversation for back and forth. This is a tendency that can get worse throughout one's life. In fact, it can get so bad that rather than go out and form meaningful relationships, someone might just sit down in their bedroom all day and make YouTube videos. We've talked a lot about how particular actions are awkward, but how do we measure this awkwardness? According to researcher, psychologist, and self-described awkward person Tashiro, awkwardness can be quantified by the Autism Spectrum Inventory. This is a 50-point inventory. 26 is needed for a diagnosis in autism. You would think that people who are not on the spectrum would score near 0, but they don't. The average score is actually a 16, and according to Tashiro, what's in between that 16 and that 26 is awkwardness. Breaking social norms or creating an awkward moment isn't just uncomfortable. From a biological perspective, it is literally frightening. Awkward moments trigger your body's fight or flight response, meaning that you react to awkward moments the same way your body reacts to threats that cause life or death situations. In a hunter-gatherer society where resources are limited, it's absolutely necessary that you know you can trust the group around you and the group can trust you. And breaking social norms diminishes that trust unless you display embarrassment. Embarrassment is a pro-social emotion. Even though it doesn't feel good, it shows that you are concerned for the people around you and that you care about society. However, there is another way to be awkward that we usually don't talk about. In the 1950s, psychologist Lawrence Kohlberg came up with the 3 phases of conventional reasoning. These are phases that you move through as you develop as a person. Most children fall into the pre-conventional stage, or pain and punishment. Kids tend to do what is rewarding and avoid whatever is painful, and this drives most of the decisions of pre-adolescence. By the time a person reaches their teenage years, they've probably moved on to what we call conventional reasoning. Called interpersonal accord and conformity, Friedrich Nietzsche would call it the herd, Carl Jung would call it the collective, and I will call it social norms. Decisions in this phase are made by what fits into society, ergo conformity. Thirdly and finally, a place that some people never actually get, we have post-conventional morality, or universal ethical principles. Now, that term might sound complicated, but it's really just virtues. Being honest even when lying is easy and expected. Having courage even when the situation is frightening. Going against social fabric and authority to do what is correct. It is worth noting right now that this is not always a good thing. In fact, it's often the reasoning of people who do incredibly destructive things. However, it is also the motive of people who move society forward, and that's where I choose to look. In 2012, then 15-year-old Malala Yousafzai decided that she would not be accepting the societal norm of women not being educated under the Taliban-occupied Pakistan. Malala Yousafzai took a bullet for women's education, but because of her actions, today there are schools being built in Pakistan that will make it easier for women to get an education. Pakistan is a freer place because of Malala. Abraham Lincoln is often regarded in textbooks as the greatest American president, but during his presidency and at his election, he was the least popular president. He would spend time brooding and depressed over his decisions that eventually led to his assassination. The same can be said for Martin Luther King. Socrates was put to death by his state for educating the youth of Athens. I can't tell you the teachings of anyone who assassinated anyone that I listed. In fact, I don't even know all of the assassins. I can, however, tell you the teachings of Socrates, of Jesus, of Martin Luther King. These people who appear to be moving the wrong way at the time of their actions helped move us the right way. And although most of them cannot continue moving with us, we will continue. And thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, which I hope you did, consider subscribing and reading Tashiro's book, Awkward, which you can get for free, link in the description. And thank you for watching.